Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin O'Brien, and my data project is on the tree canopy effects on heat exposure for pedestrian transportation in the city of Norfolk. The Norfolk area has a high percentage of pedestrian traffic given the area's crowded nature. Every day, people walk, bike, scooter, or ride the bus to work, home, or places of leisure. As the world continues to heat up, so do these individuals. As some of you may have experienced, being under the shade of a tree on a very hot day can be the relief you need. Using data from Norfolk's open data portal and information about significant trees, planted trees, pedestrian, biking, walking traffic, as well as e-scooter traffic, I aim to find trends that can help us propose future locations for communities on where to plant trees, which currently suffer from a lack of shade. The goals are to explore how pedestrians are affected by the heat and by the paths that they take every day when they commute, and attempt to provide insight on where to efficiently plant trees to create a more comfortable commute for these individuals. Here we can see a map that I've created of the Norfolk area. The semi-transparent gray lines divide the census tracts. The blue dots show trees that were planted by the planting tree program, and the green triangles represent significant trees. So as you can see, there are definitely communities and areas that lack the same amount of tree and biodiversity as others. All of my data sources came from the Norfolk Open Data Portal. A few of them had to be hosted on my GitHub due to the nature of the files. To begin exploring this data, we'll start with significant trees. Significant trees are deemed significant by Norfolk's master gardeners, who do so based on the trunk's diameter. They collect information on the genus, species, height, and spread of these trees. Below, we will look at these trees and compare them to bus stops and pedestrian traffic. To begin, I mapped the significant trees to get an idea of where they are in relation to the census tracts, otherwise known as communities. When we look at a bar plot based on the count of significant trees by area or census tract, we can see that Park Place has more than double the number of significant trees as other census tracts, followed by Monticello Village, Larchmont, and Lakewood. I will bring these names up again as they are also prevalent in the planted tree program. The next bar chart visualizes the top 5 species of significant trees according to count. We can see the oak tree is by far the most common, accounting for 37% of the total significant trees. This is most likely due to the nature of oak trees and how they become so large. Next, moving on to the planted trees, I again map them over Norfolk area. And what you can see is that it's not much different than significant trees. These trees are planted in very similar locations. Again, when I bring up by count the census tracts with the most trees, you can see Larchmont, Lakewood, and Park Place once again. Next, we can see that Virginian species, also known as southern oak, was most planted by the tree group. So by now you might be wondering, what does this matter? Well, with the lack of biodiversity in the trees, diseases that sweep certain species or genus can wipe out a large portion of trees. Secondly, the planting tree program is planting trees in very similar areas as where there's significant trees already. Although these areas do experience pedestrian traffic, they are not amongst the highest in pedestrian traffic, as we will see later in the analysis. In order to paint a better picture of why tree coverage is so important, I will go into temperatures of the Norfolk area from last year. The average temperature in the month of July was 89 degrees, and the highest temperature in July was 101 degrees. The average temperature in August was 87, and the highest temperature was 99 degrees. And most of us have probably experienced how humidity plays a large factor as well. I think we can all imagine sitting at the bus stop for 10 minutes, waiting to go to work, and soiling our nice clothes in sweat. Maybe some people would consider using an e-scooter in order to escape the stagnant heat and catch a breeze. but the cost of an e-scooter could be too much for people. Next, I would like to take a look at bus stops, as I feel like this is one of the easiest places to allow someone's commute to have a higher percentage of shade coverage, as once they are on the bus, they no longer have to worry about the heat. So first I mapped the bus stops in the Hampton Road region, and then I filtered it down to Norfolk. And so here we can see a count of the bus stops in the Norfolk area. Again, where most trees are is also where most bus stops are, so this is a great sign. So next, we'll look at a bar plot showing the count of bus stops by census tract. We can see that Ocean View has the most, and I want to keep Ocean View in mind as it is the poster child for this project. Locations show up in the top 10 for most planted trees or significant. Next, I will look at bike and pedestrian traffic. You can see again, Ocean View Avenue has by far the highest pedestrian traffic and just barely reaches first place for bike traffic. So we can see the same trend as with bus stops. Looking at the e-scooter data, assuming that an average commute is over 2 miles, the average scooter trip duration is 42 minutes. That's 42 minutes sitting at crosswalks or even when driving in extreme heat. Looking at e-bikes, you can see a similar story. By looking at the current location of significant trees in conjunction with planted trees that will in time yield shade in those respective locations, we then have an idea of areas with sufficient shade coverage. By looking at pedestrian traffic, bus stops, and e-scooter trips, we can look for areas where pedestrian traffic is high while having low percentage of shade cover. This will allow for more strategic tree planting. We can also identify what species of trees could be more represented to allow for more biodiversity. Most importantly, we can combat heat-related health issues in areas most in need. Based on the results, Ocean View could use more tree coverage. The issue may come from soil quality being close to the beach and the types of trees that can survive there. This is where biodiversity, again, plays a big role. As for continuation of future work, in the future I would like to collect more environmental data, especially during the hottest months of the year. I think surveying all the bus stops in Norfolk and reporting their individual shade coverage is a crucial step in providing the community with more comfortable commutes. With this information, we could provide even more insight on where the tree planting group should focus their efforts. The challenges faced with this data project include not having information on all the trees within the Norfolk area, only having the planted, which currently are not creating shade coverage, as well as significant trees only having around 500 data points. And then having an actual longitude and latitude in respect to the e-scooter data would help determine what their routes may have looked like. And sadly, all we had was starting and ending census tract, which typically was the same. Concludes my data project. Thank you all for listening.